I'd like to call to order the workshop for the Tiverton Town Council. I'd like to have Nancy take the roll.
Councilor Roderick.
Present.
Councilor Medeiros.
Present.
Councilor Lambert.
Present.
Councilor Shabbat.
Present.
Councilor Gerlach.
Present.
Councilor Ruda.
Present.
Councilor Pelletier has emailed me. He's stuck in traffic. He'll be here as soon as he can.
All right, at this time, I'd like to have the Town Solicitor, Andy Tights, come up to do the introduction of the Assistant Town Solicitors. Oh, sorry, before Andy, let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, Mr. Tights.
Thank you. I'm going to come up here so I can use the mic. Just wanted to take this opportunity since we had everybody here. We've been wanting to do it for a while, but we always had these crowded agendas. Just to introduce the Assistant Town Solicitors. I know you see me all the time. Everybody sees me. You've seen Mike Ursillo as far as the labor matters and filling in. Gina DeCenzo has filled in for me. But we've got some of the other firms and the other people, and of course Peter Ruggiero, who's always with the Planning and Zoning Board, but not with the Council. But because we got a fifth Monday night of the month, we're able to do it. So just wanted to take a chance to introduce you so you have a face with the body and so forth. And so I guess first I'll lead with Peter and his firm.
Good evening. How are you all? I see some of you around now and then, and but I've been doing the planning and zoning for several years, I think, as you know, and I have a practice based in Warwick, and I'm also a solicitor in other communities. I think many of you are aware. I have with me David Petracca, who's also with me in my office, and he attends the planning board and zoning board with me and will fill in periodically if I have a conflict for some reason. So thank you, and appreciate serving the town.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first one we'll introduce is Scott Rich, who's going to come up to the mic. He's the Rich of Ursillo, Tights and Rich.
Yes, I am Scott Rich. I co-founded Ursillo, Tights and Rich with Mike Ursillo and Andy Tights 17 years ago. I handle a lot of commercial transactions. I do construction contracts. I do commercial lending and real estate acquisitions and leasing. And I deal with my partners every day and we have a good time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Nancy?
Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Nancy Latender. I've been with Ursillo, Tights and Rich for 17 years since the beginning. My areas are municipal and land use law primarily, so I've had the opportunity to work not only with the town council here in Tiverton, but some of the other aspects of representation here, including the district court prosecutions. But in other communities, I sit with both the zoning and planning boards on a regular basis. In addition to 16 years of experience as a land use attorney, I'm also a certified planner, just as my mentor, Andy Tights. So we're happy to help you in any way we can. And I guess next.
Thank you.
Thanks. And while Christina's on the way up, I'll point out that so is Peter Peter Ruggiero is a certified planner too. So you're going to be hearing a land use development proposal tonight, and both attorneys are also certified planners on that. So we think it'd be overkill for Nancy to stay for the whole evening. Christina, please.
Christina Seno. I've been with Ursillo, Tights and Rich for approximately 7 years now. My practice areas include commercial transactions and commercial banking, and I also focus in litigation drafting and research.
Thank you.
And Troy.
Hi, good evening. My name is Troy Costa. I've been with Ursillo, Tights and Rich now for 16 years, and I primarily work with Andrew Tights with Town Matters, dealing with real estate, most recently the sale of the Ranger School and non-quit school. Also various open space matters, projects including the Thomas Street project, which closed last year with Brian James and Jim Gonzalo's help. And thank you very much for having us this evening.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Is there anyone left in your office?
We didn't go any farther down. At some point, we'll have the rest of you also meet. John Bernardo is doing the district court prosecutions now. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to open the Tiverton Planning Board special meeting for Monday, April 29th. This is a unique opportunity for everyone to witness both a planning board meeting and a town council workshop in the same evening. I'd like to just ask one thing, that everybody please turn your cell phones and any other devices that you have to vibrate or off. Sure. Okay.
We'll do a roll call for attendance. Mr. Monas?
Here.
Ms. Skimon?
Here.
Mr. Holmes?
Here.
Mr. Surratt?
Here.
Ms. Eva?
Here.
Mr. Corr?
Here.
Mr. Hardy?
Present.
Mr. Hughes?
Here.
We also have Deirdre Pybas in the back from Commonwealth Consultants, and we have Ken Buckland from the Cecil Group.
All right, number one on the agenda tonight, the Capianato Group LLC. They're under agreement to purchase 1414 Atwood Avenue, Johnston, Rhode Island. The petition is a pre-application informal concept plan. It's the south side of Sousa Road, the north side of Route 24, the east side of Main Road. It's an R4 zoning district, Plat 110, Lot 102, and Plat 301, Lot 220. The development will be called Tiverton Crossings. It's a mixed-use major land development, retail, office, residential, hotel, and restaurant. I'd just like to make a quick statement, as seeing as this is a pre-application informal concept plan meeting tonight. We won't be taking any commentary from or comments from the audience. If and when this goes to the next step, there'll be a public informational meeting at the master plan stage, and that will be the time when we'll open it up to the public. Gentlemen? Yeah. Mr. Corr is recusing himself from this application.
Good evening. My name is Tom Moses. I'm an attorney, law office of Moses Afonso Ryan in Providence, Rhode Island. I represent Capianato Group in this matter. With me tonight is Mr. Joe Parrott. Joe is the executive at Capianato Group in charge of their Boston office and all acquisitions that they're involved with. Also with me tonight is Mr. Kelly Coates, who is in charge of all new real estate development, Capianato Group. He's also a senior executive, Capianato Group. In addition, we have a principal from Vanessa Hagen Bruslin, David Taglianetti, who is here. They will be handling all the engineering issues regarding this development. As you know, this is a large project and a very interesting project, being a mixed-use opportunity for the town of Tiverton. We're very excited about bringing this proposal before both the planning board and the town council, and this is a wonderful opportunity. We hope you enjoy the presentation. With that, I'd ask Mr. Perrick to give you an overview regarding Capianato Group and the overall market. Thank you.
Can you lean into the mic?
Hi, my name's Joe Perrick. I'm the Vice President, Capianato Group. I run the Boston office for Capianato. I'm also a resident of Aquidneck Island and have driven past the subject property twice a day for the last 15 plus years. So spend a lot of time on Route 24 and know the area and the site fairly well. Capianato Group is an integrated real estate development company, and what we have done is spent a tremendous amount of time looking at this piece of real estate, evaluating, critiquing actually, many of the prior development proposals that have come before both the town council and the planning board, and really tried to implement many of the best practices that we see in real estate development today and kind of roll them up into this site and make it the best that it can be. So it's with a tremendous amount of excitement and enthusiasm that we stand before you today. And my partner Kelly Coates will spend time taking you through some of the specifics of the development. Carpionato Group, we have developed a very large mixed-use project in Cranston, Rhode Island by the name of Chapel View. It encompasses both retail, office, residential, and restaurants with underground parking. It truly is one of the most unique commercial properties, I would say, certainly in the state of Rhode Island. There's really nothing I can compare it to, and probably one of the more unique properties in New England. And by that I mean, you would have to go pretty far to see a more beautiful, more successful project than the one that's been created in Cranston, Rhode Island. That project, Kelly will get into the specifics a little bit of it, but it's unfolded and evolved over a course of, I believe, close to a decade. So I want to make sure people understand this evening, when they see the presentation, what you're going to see is not something that's going to emerge in 24 months. This is a project and a commitment we're making to the town of Tiverton that's going to probably take the better part of a decade, depending on market conditions, for it to come to its full potential and its full fruition. The other thing about Carpionato, and I knew it before I came to work for them, is they are a long-term player. Mr. Carpionato, I believe, has been developing and investing in real estate in the state of Rhode Island for over 50 years. It's a third-generation Rhode Island family. And I think that, in of itself, says a lot. When we look at the Tiverton project, I, as an Aquidneck Islander, I get excited because I say, it's not going to be like anything we have on Aquidneck Island, that's for sure. Certainly not in Newport, Middletown, or Portsmouth. And sometimes as a residence that lives down by Second Beach, we always have to go off island to do certain types of shopping and everything else. But we look at the Tiverton project as really a town environment, a gathering place. And today, everyone is looking for opportunities where they can drive to one location, they can get out of their car, a project or a development is very walkable, where people can live there, they can work there, and they can recreate there. And by recreation, today shopping has become a form of recreation. Going to restaurants has become a form of recreation. So, it gets people out of their car, and it's an area where people can certainly congregate, and we're excited about that. Some of the retailers that the Carpionato Group works with include the likes of Whole Foods. In Cranston, we have the only REI, Recreational Equipment Incorporated, REI stores in the state of Rhode Island. I personally, and the company, we represent all the corporate stores for Alex and Ani across the country. So when I speak of new urbanism and projects that are coming to fruition across the United States, I'm not speaking from a lack of knowledge. I just opened Alex and Ani's store last week in City Creek Center in Salt Lake City, Utah, which is probably one of the most dynamic retail environments in the country. And that was on the front cover of Shopping Centers Today magazine a couple of months ago. But it's, and when you're working with someone like that retailer, Alex and Ani, there's a whole genre of retailers that want to be around somebody like that, whether they be additional apparel retailers or food uses or even yoga and Pilates studios, of which we have many in the Carpionato Group's portfolio. So without chewing up more time here on the microphone, I would love to turn this over to Kelly Coates. He will walk you through all the specifics of the development. And again, we're very excited to be here and look forward to certainly your feedback and certainly the feedback of the public as we go through this process. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
At
appreciate that introduction. And Carpionato is based in and committed to Rhode Island. I'd just like to point out my team, none of which we picked for tonight. They've all done many, many, many jobs with us. Peter can recognize them. Those of Andy recognizes them. Right over here is Mark Tavares, born in Tiverton. And he heads up our drafting and design department. Kelly Nixon Morris, she's planner in Cumberland. Kieran Browning is Charlestown. David Taglianetti, he lives with his family in Cranston. Joe already mentioned that he lives Middletown, Newport. Tom is Barrington, and I'm Warwick, where I raised my children, and they've all left and gone to college and work. And so we believe in Rhode Island, and despite its challenged economy, we believe in it. We believe in Tiverton, and we believe we can recreate here what we've created in Cranston, but on a very different layout and a different kind of a scale and a radically different density. But we've learned that there's real success in office where you can go downstairs and have your choice of restaurants. Consequently, at our Chapel View restaurant, we have the worldwide headquarters of Alex and Ani. They currently have 25,000 square feet with us, 400 employees, and they're doubling that. That'll be announced shortly. And so they're taking another 25,000 square feet with us. We have the headquarters offices of a large insurance company called First Comp, and they're a division of Merkel, and that's a AA best rated. So if you know the insurance industry, you'll know that they're never going to go out of business. They have their headquarters on an entire floor there of 31,000 square feet. We also have some of the state's leading attorneys and financial services firms, and we also have Senator Jack Reed. His main offices are there. And these people love it. And with every tenant that's come in, I promised the guy who did the deal that your employees are going to love you, because you can go downstairs and you have a choice of 5 restaurants to go to. You can be bad and go to an ice cream store. You can be good and go over to a Whole Foods or a Shaw's. And that advantage has been crucial as the executives have gotten to know it. They've purchased condominiums. And a lot of people don't like when you think of where am I going to purchase my condominium in the middle of a parking lot. And yet they have. And they love that lifestyle of having work, live, and play, all in one spot. Let me tell you first about this spot and why we believe in it. First is 24. And no, we're not fans of the toll on 24. And we've committed with a few neighbors to join in the fight and fight that. It's not right. When I come to the office, I don't cross a toll. I'm a Rhode Islander. I go from Warwick to Warwick, or Warwick to Johnson, or Warwick to Providence. I don't pay a toll to go to work. And so I don't think people in Tiverton or Portsmouth should either. But we believe in 24, and we think we'll have a vibrant project regardless of the impact of that toll, but we're still committed to the fight. And we also like the roadway network of Maine and Fish and Sousa. And this site is bounded by those. Mr. Chairman, we have a book, if that would be all right, to the 2 chairmen. If it would be all right, we're going to pass out a book. There's no new material in here that you don't already have. It's just packaged at a scale where you don't have to open all the plans all the way. So you'll find 11 by 17 copies of those.
I'll give you one if I have extras. I'm sure.
So as you turn in that, Mark, we'll go back to the beginning.
That's small, 60 years.
Okay, let's go to that aerial photo. Okay, so the site is bounded on its southerly edge by 24, on its northerly edge by Sousa, on the westerly end by wetlands and by Maine, and on the easterly end by land which sits behind, wetlands which sit behind VD Motors. A couple of differences in the, as I've read, I'm sure most of you have seen the press on the project as it's been announced, and other people's impressions of what we're proposing. I know that before this board, a group proposed, 2 different groups proposed shopping centers, and that is not what we're proposing. We're proposing a mixed-use development with a heavy emphasis on office, on restaurant, on residential, on hotel, and of course, retail. So you might ask right off the start, why what's the purpose of the retail? The retail creates a vibrancy. It extends the hour of the project to go later in the evening, and it enables the office development to have life on Saturday, on Sunday, and on hours after 4:30, 5 o'clock. And so we think we can attract vibrant retail. We have the number one Alex Anani in the chain there in Cranston. There's a lot of people who like to be with them, and they'll travel with us here, as well as a whole host of national retailers that are targeted to this. So to that great American company, Walmart, no disrespect intended, we propose no Walmart, okay? We propose no Kmart. And if you have that image in your mind, that's exactly right, not what we want. If you think of office, there's no office tenant ever said, well, make sure I'm as close as possible to a Walmart, right? Right, so that's not the amenity we're looking for. That's not the tenant we're looking for. And so, as you notice on our plans, the largest box on there, the largest footprint on there is 45,000 square feet. And so, it's directed toward a different scale, a different feel. And if you've traveled to Chapel View, if you've traveled to Garden City, you'll get a feel. If you've traveled to South County Commons, South County Commons is a miniature version of what we're proposing here, but on a little bit more upscale version. And that enables people that live in South County not to have to travel up to Warwick, right? It's been a great key amenity there, and the project's working. The project's very successful, it's working. Chapel View is working. And, almost every week we're announcing a new tenant. I'm going to show you this project right here. It sits pretty much at grade as you're going from, I'm going to take you from right, my right, maybe if you're on the board on the left, from Fish and heading west. The project sits pretty much flat at grade with the road, the way it sits right now, Sousa, and then as you head west on Sousa, Sousa then drops down. So the grade pretty much sits on the site in the 210 to 220 level. And then when you're at the intersection of Sousa and Main, you're at about 155. So it drops off about 65 feet there to go down toward that end. As you head further south, when you're right up against 24, there is a large hill there on the site. And you see that stone cut when you're coming west on 24, right? And you're heading in toward either to get off the off-ramp for Main, or you're getting off, or you're heading over the bridge. You'll see there's a large stone cut there. So that does sit higher, and we do propose to cut that down. Other than that, the project sits pretty much at grade. Can we go to the next one? Okay. The site, that was a good one you had just up there. So the site is comprised of 2 or 3 landowners, and maybe it'll be 4 by the time we finish up. And that includes the project proposal in most of which is in yellow, and you can see the word site is on it, and then there's the blue is Brito. So the prior petition never included both of those parcels. They attempted to do that toward the end. Toward the end, they realized their mistake of having Sousa be their front door, right? They realized that was their mistake. And at the end, they tried to rectify that. And that was never our proposal, to have Sousa be our front door. Sousa is a relief valve, but it is not the front door of the development. The front door is on Main, where it should be. We can get a couple more. Okay, we're going to go right there to that drawing. And for those who can't see it over here, Mr. Chairman, would it be all right if we put a hard copy of that up over here on this side? Because the poles kind of block folks.
Copy of,
That same plan right there, Mr. Chairman?
on the wall?
Yeah.
Another board? Yeah, if you have another board, sure.
On the easel? Thank you, Mark. So this plan here shows you, I'll take you first from Main. So you see on Main there, our main entrance proposal comes up. Immediately on your right as you're driving up is a conference facility and a hotel. And then that road climbs in elevation. And there we have a town center with retail, office, and residential there in 3-story structures with parking subgrade or underground. So I did read in the paper a misnomer that because we had parking and structures above it, that it was 4 stories. It's not. It's 3 stories. So the parking is completely underground. It's garage parking, which is a crucial amenity. Do you know in Chapel View, our last lease that we signed in Chapel View, which was a significant amount of square footage, 20,000 feet, which in Rhode Island is a big lease. We achieved rents of almost $15 a foot above what Turk's Head is getting in its most recent deals, above what Textron, just recently a large law firm called Partridge, Snow and Hahn, moved into Textron. They moved off of South Main. The recent deal we signed was $15 a foot more than that deal.
Build the L-shaped buildings underneath those.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes.
So for those folks on the left, we're right there. The thing kind of looks like a star shape right there. So as you come in, there'll be a rotary that greets you into the site, and then you spin off from that. Heading toward the right, against 24 is retail. On the buildings on the left, those are 2-story buildings with office over retail. And they may be converted to be just pure office. And then as you notice, they're set back 60 feet. Oh, well, first there's a sidewalk against them and green. And then they're set back 60 feet from the next green. And that next green is 25 feet. So there'll be nothing built on Sousa closer than about 90 feet from the street. And up against the street, we're going to propose, of course, these are all things that are going to have to be worked out with the planning board, city council, and staff. We would propose to put in stone posts and fences that would match in with those. And so they would have a solid fencing with landscaping between them. On Sousa side, there would be landscaping and then fence. And then on the other side, there'd be fence and then landscaping and then parking lot. And so they'll be truly buffered along there. As you'll also notice on this plan, I want to point out to you the amount of green that's on the plan. So there are significant buffers on Sousa for the majority of its length. And some of those are formed by wetlands, which we propose in this development, with the exception of, I think, I'm just going to hedge for what we're required to do through the planning process. Currently, this plan calls for no filling of wetlands or wetland buffers. So we preserve all the wetlands and then all the legislative buffers that go with them. And so you'll see that means the trees that are in them, they all remain. In the buffer areas, the trees that are in those all remain. So Sousa Road, for the bulk of it, is going to look pretty much the way it does now, except our experience in most of our developments is, in fact, I would say at all our developments, the homeowners that are closest by, all their property values go up significantly. So they're going to have a key amenity across the street. They're going to be able to go across the street and get the same benefit as if you lived in the development. You'll be able to work there, you'll be able to shop there, you'll be able to eat at restaurants there. One of the key benefits we've also noticed is quality restaurants. Now, I don't care how beautiful a restaurant we put here, how much money we pour into it, it's not waterfront. And if you want to go sit by the water, you're not going to go here for a restaurant, right? That's not going to have that ambience, it's not going to have that part of it. But what we are going to be able to do is have large functions. So people can have a large business function here, and that's a key amenity for an office tenant. It's also a key amenity that is not really present in Tiverton. And so we think we bring that to the community, so you don't have to go outside of the community to have those kind of functions. And then lastly, so those are retail that's sitting up against the green on the top. And, I mean, a restaurant, then you see the same thing. You'll see there's a town green put in there. And then lastly, retail. If we can go to the access plan. So this is, I would say, of everyone's concerns in the community, I would say this is probably a leading concern. I don't speak for the planning board and what your concerns are. I don't speak for the town council and what your concerns are. But if I were in your shoes, I would certainly be worried about traffic. And so on our team is led by VHB, and VHB has been involved in, I would say, almost every major development in New England. And they have offices from Maine down through, I think, Maine through Florida. And so they have hundreds and hundreds of employees on staff. And they're going to review this intensively. I want to share with you, though, our traffic theory, okay? And so I don't speak to you as a traffic engineer. I'm speaking to you as what our team of experts have come and looked at the project. And so we believe that by putting the front door on Main, and by emphasizing that the majority traffic will come from 24 east and westbound and go north and then go into the site and then exit the same way. Of course, we will have traffic coming south on Main. We will have some traffic coming south on Fish. We will have some traffic that exits onto Fish and then turns on Sousa to come in. But I think over time, people will learn the quickest route. Water always seeks its own level, and so it works out. I can tell you that in Cranston, Rhode Island, at Christmas time, you can get into you can get into Garden City easier today than you could. And in that interim, we've built 300,000 square feet of office with Citizens Bank, which we're soon to be expanding. And we've built 470,000 square feet of mixed use, including retail, office, residential, and restaurant. So with nearly 1 million square feet more there at that intersection, you can get easier from 37 into Garden City than you could before we built and did our roadway improvements. And if it's done correctly, that works. If it's done correctly. In Warwick, we redid the intersection with the state and with the city. So in working with, at that time, Mayor Chafee, and with all the state reps and other people, we got that intersection put on the tip. And at the Crown Plaza, if you're familiar with the Crown Plaza in Warwick, it's the other side of the bay. And at that development, you can get into that facility easier today, and we've built a couple 100,000 square feet of office. You can get there easier today than you could, and we built also a couple 100,000, maybe 300,000 feet of retail next door to it. And you can get there and through that intersection easier today than you could have, but it was because we spent the dollars on roadway improvements. We're not going to propose a TIF with the community. We're not going to look to the community for $1, and we're happy to pay our way. We do not eat, off of your plate. We want to earn everything that we do on our own. I will tell you this, that I have been through 100 plus hearings of the Cranston Historic District Commission on Chapel View project. That's interesting. I would challenge you to have just one of your staff members call the city of Cranston and check me on my facts. Over 100 meetings of that board alone on that one project. Of the planning board, we've had more than 20 or 30 hearings. Of the city council, we've had the same thing. And now, we don't want to tie up this city council for the same number of nights, but we're happy to do it, okay? And so the vision we lay out is what we believe can be a major tax generator, a major employment generator for Tiverton. And so we believe that we can bring major office, because we've done it. In the last 5 years, we've leased 500,000 square feet of office to Citizens Bank, to Alex Anani, to First Comp, amongst other national companies. C.R. Bard, with their division called Davol, where they're involved in 60% of all hernia operations. And so major multinational corporations. We think we can do the same thing here in Tiverton. We would project our taxes upon full build-out, at your current rates, to be between $1.6 million and $2 million a year. We would project employment, both part-time and full-time, to be 1,500 positions. Some people say, we've got retail in there. Those aren't the best jobs. You know, they are great. They're great for our children. They're great. They learn to say, thank you. Can I show you where this is? They learn to come in on time. They learn to have the dignity of work. And a lot of our seniors enjoy those jobs. Plus, there's upward mobility and growth in those positions. But the majority of the job generation will be in office. Now, key to this project will be its restaurants, and we will attract 1 or 2 national restaurants, but the other will have to be homegrown, including one operated by the company. And in that, we would propose to make a major investment. I would encourage any of you to come over and view Chapel View and see the Chapel Grill restaurant and see what we invested there. So in that project, we invested in one facility about 10 million in one restaurant. And that's a key amenity for the project. It's like roadway widening. It's like just a part of the infrastructure of the development. And people come and they're able to enjoy that. The office tenants find that to be a key. If we can go to the use. So this use chart will show you over here. I apologize for those who are behind me. But as you can see, it's color-coded, and you have that in your book also. And so that color codes in it makes it a little easier to see the retail, the mixed use, the office, and the other portions of the development. We will display that over there. So the project, what will it entail? This project will entail approvals from the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management, at least 3 approvals from that agency, maybe closer to 5 from the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. RIDOT will require curb cuts, both on, or they're called physical alteration permits, both on Main and on Fish. We will be involved in permits also from the community with respect to all the roadway improvements proposed that will eventually be agreed upon by your consultant, our consultant, the planning board, and the city council. And then we'll have to go through a whole host of approvals from the city council. In Cranston, what worked successfully for us there was a thing called MPD, Mixed Use Plan Development, where the city council retained certain control over the development, in this case the town council. And you would have to return both to the planning board and to the council for anything that was deemed by the planner or planning staff to be a significant modification. And then any minor modifications would go through the planning board process. So we found that to give the community a better sense of control and comfort. And so we would be comfortable going through that with the development process. I would just finish by saying, as I look at the community, I drive up and down Maine, and Maine's hurting. If you go south, it's quaint, it's beautiful. You go north, and you can see the full force of the recession has crushed families. And you can see closed storefronts. You can go off side roads. You can find a lot of foreclosed homes. And this is a development that will generate significant tax dollars, significant employment over the next 20 years. At Chapel View, our tax bill is 2.5 if you add it all up. That's a year in, year out. When your rating agency looks at that, they love to see that. That's a real rateable. That'll keep the rating agency for the community low. And the employment is crucial, as our children all head to Boston for jobs. And we think we can make a place here that they won't find. You know, there's great employers that have moved just recently into Barrington, right? And why should Providence snag all those jobs? Why not Tiverton, right? Why do all the Navy jobs and the research jobs, why do they stay on the island? This is a great spot where you could have major employers right here in this town. We're ready to make the investment. We don't spin our properties. We don't sell them. I have experts who sit right in front of me and not just back here who can tell you we do not sell our properties. We're in for the long run. We won't make money on this for 15, 20 years because we don't sell. But that's fine with us. We're based in, we're committed to Rhode Island, and we're happy to work with the planning board and city council, town council, over a long, long process to get this and make it work right. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's essentially our presentation. We'd be happy to address any questions that the planning board or the town council would like to ask.
Seeing as traffic was what was mentioned, and certainly is one of our major concerns,
Yep.
what improvements to the roadways would you project doing to alleviate traffic tie-ups?
Well, again, not being a traffic engineer, but having our traffic engineer to listen in and to participate in that way, I would say the following is, those final determinations are made through the planning process. Roadways will have to be widened, intersections will have to be modified. We'll have to look, right? We'll have to look in depth. If your consultants were to review this, which we hope that's the process we go through, they're going to direct us to look at the on and off ramps at 24 and Main, Fish and Main. They're going to direct us to look at the intersections, obviously, of Sousa and Fish, Sousa and Main. And then certainly at our front door, they're going to ask us to look at there and also at the entrances, at the 3 proposed entrances on Sousa.
Okay. Another question I had, it wasn't on the sheet here. How many stories do you propose for the hotel? How large would that be?
The hotel will probably be 3 stories.
Just 3 stories?
Yeah. I appreciate you bringing up that point. If I can spin off of that point just a second.
Right ahead.
Okay, so we're aware of the historic district there in the front, and we do not want to change the real feel of Maine. So Maine has a nice rural feel to that. And so we're going to respect that historic district in that area. If you go out and you see, if any of you have been to Fidelity out to the Bryant campus, you've seen the road. You see what they did there on the widening there, and it still feels rural. You see, in their case, which is different than Tiverton, in their case, they put up split rail fences, and it really does not, when you drive up there, it doesn't, you don't have a feeling, oh my gosh, Fidelity has the biggest office ever, right? You don't see that, and just, it's so huge, it's overwhelming. In fact, you don't see it at all, right? And that's pretty much what's going to happen here, right? We're set way back off the street, and we want that rural feel to be there, but of course we want beautiful stone walls with stone signage identifying Tiverton crossings.
Anybody else on the planning board have any questions? Stu? Good. Stu?
Tom, I'll just get you one, if I could. We propose to build the main entrance on East Main. That's where the infrastructure starts, right there. Day one.
Right.
Okay.
Stu?
Two quick questions. The first is, you mentioned underground parking. Will that just relate to the restaurant in the hotel, very close to the entrance off Main Road?
No, that will relate only to the office up on the top.
Okay.
So the underground parking is only, I think that in that quad of building right there. So if you look closely at the plan, it's kind of hard to see from here, it's 100 miles away. But if you look on your plan, you'll see arrows heading into the building, and that will show you how the cars go in and go out.
So those 4 office buildings will have underground parking?
That's correct.
Okay, my next question is a little different. Did you consider Tiverton's Industrial Park as the possible location for this project? It's also very highly visible from Route 24. It's very close to this project, but it will not have the same impact on Main Road and on the historic district.
Yes, we did. Thank you. Thank you. It's Mr. Hardy.
Correct.
Yes, we certainly did, and we do have a proposal pending before the town council, and we are interested in investing in the industrial park, but for a different development. And yes, we have looked at it in depth, and we're aware of the wetland and grading challenges that present with us. And we just did not feel that that could adequately be converted to this use. But we like the site for another use.
Thank you.
Rosemary?
Mr. Coates, it was mentioned that it would take a decade to build this project. Where would you envision it start? Or
Well-
what would come first?
Well, of course, we want to dress up the front door,
Okay.
right? And the infrastructure would pretty much have to be done all at one time.
Okay. The entire infrastructure within? As
Pretty
well?
much, the bulk of the infrastructure will have to be done just because of the way the site lays out, the bulk of the grading, but the build-out will be over time.
Okay.
I would anticipate at least 1 year to go through the permitting process,
Right.
at a minimum.
I was just wondering which buildings you would foresee as coming first.
So I would anticipate that we would go pretty much from the site, if you look at the left-hand side or the western part of the site, and then we may go putting in some of the retail to form the amenity also. But of course, a phasing plan has to be approved by the planning board.
Correct.
And so that is something that we're going to eventually have to work back and forth together. So on everything we do, we propose, but the planning board will have to guide us, and the city council will have to guide us in how we phase things.
Going back to the plan, I noticed that you didn't take into consideration our density calculations as to taking out the unsuitable land, and this is quite a massive project here.
The project is large. I wouldn't go with the word massive, right? I wouldn't go with massive. But in terms of Main Street, it's larger than the other project on Main Street, I'll give you that. But in terms of the density requirements, we'll have to meet whatever requirements that the community imposes upon us. But I will say this, if you just look at the board and you look at the green, yes, you have to carve out the wetlands from the unsuitable land calculation. However, there are still significant amounts of green left on the proposal.
And it was also mentioned that you were going to cut the ledge along 24.
Yes.
Would that be done initially?
I think that needs to be done closer to upfront part of the project, because you don't want to, it's just really disruptive later on. Creates, the dust and the disruption.
Correct.
As a follow-up to that, would you do the road improvements at the same time that you did the infrastructure in the park?
I think that the infrastructure needs to be in place in order for the development to work. So I think the infrastructure needs to be in phase one. All the
So-
roadway improvements, all of that in phase one.
Highway exits and
Yeah.
front, and
Yeah.
any widening you would
Yeah,
do,
whatever,
up
I
front
think that has to
before?
all be done up front. An office tenant, they are not as clever or visionary as this group. You guys do it all the time. You're planning all the time. So you can see on a piece of paper, and then you can think, okay, this is how it's going to look, right? But an office tenant says, where do I put the key? You know what I mean? They can't have these, and we're gonna, they have to be able to see it's in place. And so for their vision, with the exception of really large, one-time, 25, 50, 100,000 square foot national tenant, when they come in, they have those people on staff that can do that. But for the majority of them, they don't. And so we're going to have the front door there so they can see it. They're going to have to see the drive. They're going to have to see the roads widened, the proper signage, the landscaping. They're going to have that feel before they're willing to make a commitment for 10, 20, 30 years.
Mr. Coates, at that front entrance, front door you talk about, what are they going to see?
Well, I think the first thing they're going to see is what we would propose before the planning board. What they're going to see is what you let us show, right, at the end of the day.
What do you
Because
want to be seen?
I think the key thing is you have to have established a graceful drive going up the hill. I think you have to have tasteful signage, right? I think you have to have not Route 2 signage. I think you have to have not, right, Fall River signage. No disrespect to Fall River. So I think you have to see that this is a quality development. It has to say quality development. I think you will see a conference center and a hotel, and those amenities are out front. And I think you will be able to see those. The rest of it, I don't think you can see much until you've driven up the hill.
Mentioning the hotel, that seems like a very major building for this area, with the idea of the rural character that the community leans towards and is in their comprehensive plan. Is that going to be found to be too stand outish? Is it going to be an eyesore to some people? Or is it going to, how will that blend?
Okay, well, that's a great question. I think that's a great question. How do you mix that in with the Osborne, with the, with all the other, properties that are there? And I think we can creatively work that through. And at the end of the day, if the planning board and the city council, town council don't get comfortable on that, then it doesn't happen, right? And so that's one of the beauties of the MPD process, is you govern the height of structures, the density of structures, all of that through. And that's done with the town council and the planning board in conjunction. So if you don't share our vision for that, right, we're gonna be flexible, because it's not live or die on that, but we would like to have the chance to persuade you with renderings and drawings about how that could work. And so that's something we will take back to work on.
Well, what I'm wondering is, as you swing down in off 24 and you come up Main, are you going to be, whoa, there's the hotel?
No, I really don't think so. I don't think so. I think there's a, I think you have a gracious, on the other side of Main right there, you have the senior facility right there, and it will not be nearly as up on the street as that. It's going to be set back, it'll be set back quite a ways from that. If you look at that, oh, I mean, it's 100 miles away from the street. So, you're just not.
Then it
it's
will
not-
be in Fall River.
Or a sonnet.
It's set back pretty far from the street. I think what we've tried to do, it's difficult for me to operate. Mark, if you can show us the conference facility. I mean, back on that plan, and just zoom into it with your little pointy. Yeah. Thank you. That's good.
It is now, it is.
So, you see we have a building planned in front of it to shield it and keep the scale. That's a one-story building in front. So, I really don't think that in this, but,
Which, the light blue one?
yeah, the light blue. So I think, and I think you're looking at, the building itself is maybe 300, 400 feet back from the street. But, I mean, the onus is on us to answer your question in detail. And I think the renderings can do the best job of that.
Well, I mean, initially, it seems like a very large building, but you also don't want it to be an overpowering building for the community.
No, you don't. You don't. I think the most important thing for the community, because our success is going to be your success, right? If we're going to do a major employer, going to do a major rateable that's successful long term, we both have our interests are co-aligned on that. And so I think the main thing we want to say is when you pull up quality development, I think that has to be the main sign, right? It has to speak for itself. And so I think I would give you my vision. You see what Fidelity works great, right? And it still looks rural on the front. We think we want to create a little more vibrancy than Fidelity, but still keep the rural nature of that. And we hear your concern, and our planners have noted it over here.
What has your research told you as far as this many rooms to have available in the area?
Well, we've had successful experience running and operating hotels, and in our hotels, we don't, we operate every employee there is one of our employees, and we've run hotels for banks before, and so we have got some good experience in the hotel business, the hospitality. We believe that there's is a good market here in Tiverton, right here. Be a nice amenity for the community, that on weekends when Aunt Ethel comes to town, there's a nice hotel that you can go stay at. It's also a key amenity. I don't know if she's got an Aunt Ethel, but it's a key amenity for the office tenants to have that on site, the conference facility and the being able to have rooms there, meeting rooms and hotel.
Now, obviously, that draw wouldn't be too much from Tiverton. Where do you anticipate it from?
Well, we'll create a big portion of our own draw. And then we're going to create something that they don't have in Newport, where you can have an encapsulated campus here, meeting facility, and you can do that. So we'll draw from the Newport businesses, the Portsmouth, the Bristol, Fall River, offices that want to have facilities, want to have functions, want to have meetings. It's going to primarily be business hotel, not a travel hotel.
Carol, Peter?
Oh.
Oh, sorry, Dave, we'll get back to you.
Back to
Most of the questions I had have been answered, and basically it's access is important, and I think that'll come.
Well, I love this stuff, so I have a lot of questions all the time. But I know this is a concept for a meeting just concepts, and I have, plus I have concepts on concepts, other ideas too. I'd like to correct maybe two mistakes in my mind. You said that L-shaped buildings, office space. I think those are going to be the residential ones.
Residential on the top floor
Yeah.
and office. So for some of, they're designed right now to be retail, office, residential, or office and residential, but they'll all be office. And it's a mixed-use building.
You say all going to be office.
They'll all have office as a component.
Oh, yes. For the 3 floors, and third floor residential, right?
Some of them will have that, yes.
So, and then there's parking underneath.
That's right.
Now, I'm looking at the plans and the facts. The underground parking for those buildings included the total parking spaces here?
It's included in the total parking spaces? Yes.
And to me, you went way beyond the parking area requirements of the regulations, like 700. Why is that?
I think we tried to comply with, the retail portions of the code, but we would like to present the concept to the community, I appreciate you bringing that up, of a concept called shared parking. And in shared parking, the peak for office and the peak for retail are not coincidental. They're different times. You have the Saturday peak for retail, and the only times they cross over each other is Friday, like around 5 o'clock, right? And so other than that, you'll find, and so there's no reason to build a lot of parking if you don't need it. So we would probably end up trying to persuade the board to have less parking and to work toward a modified parking standard, right? None of us want a big lot that's not used, right? It doesn't create the sense of vibrancy, and it's just, we don't need it. We don't need a lot of paving. So we will try to persuade the board of that concept. That's, I think, where, when you do a mixed-use development, you can come off standards.
I'd rather have more green than parking spaces.
Yeah.
I think there's another little area too. I think somebody mentioned that they're going to need a state permission to go off Fish Road. Are you planning to make improvements on Fish Road?
Yes.
Fish?
Yes.
And Sousa?
Yes.
Make it wider?
We'll be making modifications to that intersection,
Okay.
and that is DOT jurisdiction.
Yes, it is. And how about traffic? They got a traffic light. That'd be an improvement too, I guess, if they can keep those traffic lights there probably too. But that's down the road.
That's down the road, but it's clearly that intersection needs some work.
And now residential, that's a big concern about the town. What type of units are you going to be rental, lease, condos?
We would be high-end residential, geared primarily toward our office tenants. And we found out that, we found there's a draw for that. And so this will not be family-oriented. We're not going to have swimming pools, we're not going to have playgrounds, we're not going to have any of that, any encouragement for, for a family.
But how many units?
On our current plan, we're showing,
Okay, 7. We got it here.
70.
And we're talking about 1 or 2 bedroom type.
You're gonna have some studio, and then you're gonna have the rest are 2 to 3 bedroom, but they're 2 bedroom with a den. So there'll be larger, big, expansive decks. Rents in the $2,000 to $2,500 range.
Amenities for these residential people that want to, he's been trying to provide some type of open space for them to take
Yes.
their feet up.
Yeah, there is, not directly related with them, but if you start looking at the plan at this scale, you just don't realize the immensity or how large the green spaces will be built in. But that would be something we'd take back, and we would want to discuss that with the board and work toward a detail like that.
So, way back when, we always wanted it, well, quite a few people wanted a village-style residential area, and with some type of municipal buildings. So, there's no aspect of, if these big retail buildings to the east never make it, would you be willing to swap land or industrial park or anything?
we looked at one of the earlier, McGinnis family had a proposal for municipal buildings, and we looked at that, and we don't think it's really the highest and best use here. It is a village layout and has a village feel for it, but it doesn't have village residential, it doesn't have townhome, and, you know, we're geared more toward commercial, retail, restaurant, office, hotel. Those are all really commercial uses, with really just incidental residential. And so I think we do have large swaths of green in the development, and that's something that we'll have to be guided by the council and planning board, which direction they want to go.
Another big factor I like is complete street development. And looking at the plans here, one side's pretty good, the sidewalks on the north side, but the south side seems to be lacking some, and intercrossing, you need some type of connection there too.
Okay. So we'll have to consider that. You want to be able to have pedestrian circulation as a key, to have that vibrancy and life. So we will put that down on our list of things to look at and incorporate.
Yeah, and another big factor in my mind too is the architectural aspect of the project. And again, I mentioned village, and see a big box like this, I think it's an office space here, 100, I don't know how long it is, let's say, I'm just going to go out a number 150 feet long. I really don't like to see a building that's 150 feet long. I could see something that's jagged and it looks like it's, instead of one big building, maybe it shows an indication, a false indication maybe, that's like 3 stores or 3 building office spaces.
Yeah, it's difficult on a plan section to give you a feel for the architecture.
Yeah.
And we could come up with a bunch of different renderings, but I would think this is, again, going to be a planning board and a city council mandate. In Westerly, we just did a recent development there. CVS got a little bit irritated with us because the building is a little too nice. So people say, when they get the next CVS in the community, they say, give us the Westerly CVS, you know? And CVS says, well, we can work on a pattern which governs how you want that to look. We can work out a pattern of stone and of a lot. I think there's going to be clapboard elements in it to have a feel, a New England feel, a Tiverton feel, right? So it feels like it fits in the fabric of the community. And I think we can work that through, and we can have an architect propose and come and propose you samples of designs. I think what he was saying is he doesn't want a long expanse, one solid plain face. And that's not what we're proposing either. We want to see something that looks more organic than that, looks like it grew up over time, even though it didn't, right? And so I think you can put language in your regulation, because if you go through the MPD, then that's going to be the governing master. And we have to live with that with the architect. Planning board has to determine whether we've lived with it, and if we propose to come off of it, then we have to come back before the city council or town council.
Dave Surratt?
Thank you. Very nice presentation, very thoughtful presentation, Mr. Coates.
Thank you.
But there was one part of it that, if you could just clarify, because you threw a lot of names out there, a lot of shopping centers out there, and in one portion of your presentation, you did talk about traffic in Garden City, and just for clarification, your company does not own
Oh, no, definitely
Garden
does not.
City Shopping Center.
No, definitely does not.
Okay, I just thought it was a
No.
little confusing.
Oh, no. No, I was just mentioning that people knew that, you know, in Rhode Island, when you tell someone where to go, you tell them where to go, and it's no longer there. You go to where something used to be. And so I think the community is familiar with Garden City. And so that's the only reason I mentioned that. They're a neighboring development, and we were able to work our improvements such that our neighbor could get in and out of his driveway easier after we were finished because of the roadway improvements. That's the point I wanted to get across, but never to convey that we developed that.
Not to kind of beat a dead horse here, but when you talk about these 4 buildings in the center here, and you said there was parking underneath, just to be clear, is it true underground parking that you're proposing, or are you proposing an elevated building with parking underneath?
Oh, no. That's very pedestrian unfriendly. So if you go downtown, there's a recent building. When I say recent, it was built in the 70s. I think it was for the Social Security Administration. It's downtown. They're proposing to demolish it. It's built up. It's pedestrian unfriendly. So we're proposing a true three-story building. And so when you walk up, you're going to have this grade as a sidewalk, and then about right here, this grade is where the roof of the garage is going to be. It's going to be down, truly, with ramps that go down in.
Another item I wanted to ask you about is, you talked a lot about what you were going to do on Sousa Road and what you're going to do on Main Road, but when I look at this plan, everybody who drives down 24 is pretty much at grade with the major part of this shopping center in the middle here, and you have all your loading docks for the retail stores there. What are you going to do to present a better picture for people driving down 24 than looking at the loading docks and dumpsters and so forth for the back of the shopping center?
Well, part of the development will not be at the same grade as 24. Part of it will be. And, we would work with the planning board to come up with a well-landscaped buffer so that you see green. I mean, the more that you can see green, the back of a building doesn't sell. Doesn't help us, and it doesn't help the community. And so, we're going to want to buffer that. We're going to want to work with DOT, but mainly with the planning board. That would be, the city council would set the town council, I would never tell them what to do. The town council could do the following: make sure that planning board that 24 is well buffered, and then it would be up to the planning board with us to live up to that parameter, so that it was buffered.
I guess the last item I have for tonight is, you've proposed several multi-story buildings. Have you done any evaluation of the water supply and water pressure for this, that would serve this facility, and whether or not you would have to put in your own water tank to provide enough water pressure and flow to support a development like this?
We know that that's an issue. We're aware that, water pressure could be an issue. Our engineers came, and then they did a baseline evaluation and gave us a report back that is doable. And it may be to be doable with a tank. We did a project in Seekonk. We built a sewer treatment plant in order to make it work. In Kingston, Mass, we did a project. We had to pull water lines. The community water lines on the south side east side weren't adequate, and so we had to pump lines underneath Route 3. We did that. So I think that's an engineering question. I would leave it to Mr. Taglianetti to investigate it in detail and come back to the staff and make sure that works.
Okay, thank you.
Another question about infrastructure, again, gas, natural gas. We're trying to bring the water.
We're definitely going to be connected to natural gas, and so wherever that line has to be extended from to widened, we will definitely be able to work with National Grid to get that to happen.
And you think you can get it up to Fish Road? For the New England? We need an industrial park, that's what. I want to go all the way.
The key thing is when a developer spends money and it creates a benefit to the community, right? And so we never want to waste our money where it's not well spent.
Can you compromise or get a coalition between VD and town and New England and you guys to think about that?
Yes, that's definitely something we can think about. We have met with VD, and we want to be a respectful neighbor of ours, and we find them to be interested in the community and its well-being also. So I'm sure that where there's good heart that we can work together.
And on the retail aspect, again, what kind of, are you looking for? You talked about no Walmart. Okay, are you not going to do Home Depot or Lowe's? You shoot for that, or just like retail?
I think if you look at our size of boxes, what we're proposing is a much smaller footprint than those. So I think if you look at that, there's a lot of other uses other than that, which is typically called big box. So the footprints of our stores are now in that range. It's kind of different development. Again, if you think of an office development, right? Not a lot of tenants. Some guys love Lowe's and Home Depot, right? They would love to be able to go downstairs at lunch and go there, but most of them wouldn't, right? And, so it just doesn't fit in with what our thought is.
You're going to seek variances like the 45,000 square foot building beyond.
Well, the process we go through is going to have to be dictated by the town council. But our preference is that we did not go through a variance process, but that the town council set a mixed-use plan district zoning. And that zoning would govern the height of buildings, the maximum size of buildings, the setbacks of buildings, the parking for the development. It would set all those parameters, so those would be governed by the town council, and then any variance off of that, we'd have to go back for a rezone, which gives the community a lot better of a comfort feeling.
So we want to create another zone.
A special zone.
Mr. Coates, are
One
you
more
talking
question.
about an overlay district?
There's,
Or an ordinance?
it gets called a lot of different things. That, I would refer to my attorney.
This has been done in several locations around the state. It was done for the Chapel View project by the city of Cranston. It was done in South Kingston for South County Commons. They developed in South Kingston, they developed a specific zone for South County Commons that described the types of uses, the level of parking, the essential overall layout was going to be done, and the determinations were done essentially initially by the council as to set up the it's actually not an overlay, it's actually a specific zone in South Kingston. And then the planning board enforces it. That's the way that works. Cranston is similar. That's the way Cranston has done. The statute, the general laws allow for it. We think it's a reasonable way approach to go at it. That way you're actually approving an overall development instead of saying, okay, give us general business here across the board and we do whatever we want. We're not asking for that. We're asking to work together to develop a specific development plan that I think everyone would sign off on. We think it gives the community more input.
Mr. Roderick, I'm sure the council has some questions.
Again, Mr. Coates, thank you for your presentation. Do the council have any questions?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Coates, currently, from a public safety perspective, the town is nowhere near being able to support a development such as this. If I think about multi-story buildings, from a fire safety perspective. So I'm curious, historically, have you worked with other communities to help invest in public safety infrastructure? And/or will you be willing to work with the community of Tiverton to make such investments?
Well, my answer is yes. We've worked with communities in all kind of. I'm going to use the word infrastructure. So in Kingston, we built a skate park. Had nothing to do with our development, but we were coming into the community. In other communities, we've done a ton of roadway improvements far above what was required for our development. And so...
How about buying a ladder truck? Let me cut to the chase.
Yeah, we're happy to participate and to mitigate any negative impacts the project would have. So I would make that crystal clear, is we're coming in and we think that the net result, right, can be win-win. And so whatever that means specifically, that's for the town council, the governing body, to determine. But yes, we are very amenable to working with the community to make the project work. We don't anticipate will be any burden to the school system. We have experience with that. We're not having children live above offices, and it's just not by the nature of how it works. It's expensive, and so we think we won't be a burden in that way. And in general, our developments have a very de minimis impact on the police departments. We have private security, and we have lots of cameras and all of that. If it's done right, well lit, well policed, those go pretty well. And of course, you have to be able to have the fire service function. So if it doesn't function, we're going to have to work that out.
In your plan, obviously, there will be several phases over a decade. Obviously, the convention center, the hotel being the entrance, I assume that's where you want to put all your eggs right away.
That's right.
And then going into the residential and retail
mix use there. Okay, and you talked about putting in the infrastructure, so I would assume that you would put in all the roadways, all underground water, sewer, whatever else that needs to be, would be complete.
Yeah, I think if you think of it as a first-class office park, so if it would be all right, Mr. Chairman, if I could just go up here?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. All right, so I'll try to be loud. So I would anticipate, let's say, not day one, this road would be in, these entrances would be in, and so all that infrastructure would be in place, all your underground utilities would be in place, we want overhead, and so you're going to see this, our buffer on Sousa would be in place, and, that's before anything's built. So I would anticipate that would be day one. And then again, the major blasting would be done day one. And then the project is built in phases out.
And speaking about the blasting, how low are you bringing that ledge that's there now?
We're looking somewhere, again, working with the community, we're looking somewhere around a mesa of around 220 there, which is, there's sections of Sousa that are at 220, so kind of table-topped off that way.
Any other questions from the council?
So would that be about 2/3 reduced from where it is now?
Oh, no. No, you're probably taking off, maybe at a spike point a little higher, but probably around 20 feet. You're
Okay.
taking out about 20 feet of it.
Was there any consideration to having an entrance off of 24?
You can't,
I know you'd have to go through the state and all that other
you
stuff.
can't have a private development. It's a limited access federal highway. It's a state highway, of course.
But if you
But it's-
name the street.
It's limited access, but if you name the street, if it were connecting to Sousa, there's a lot of other alternatives if it were going to serve the community in some fashion. And so, yes, of course, we've looked at that, yes, Mr. Chairman. But my esteemed counsel points out that would take a long, long time.
Yes. Thank you. I see no other questions from the council. I'll turn it back over to the planning board.
Thank you. Mr. Tights?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing, more for the public, but give you a chance to comment as well, because I think people are interested in the process. And as I hear you talking about some sort of zoning amendment. And so I think as I understand the process, you're going to be having, you may have other future pre-application meetings with the planning board. But your next step would be the master plan stage at the planning board. That includes a public information meeting. That's when you'll make your presentation with more detail, and everyone, the public, will have their opportunity to speak, and that will probably go on for more than one meeting, I'm sure. And then, assuming that you obtain a master plan approval from the planning board, you would then come to the town council for the zone change and/or comprehensive plan and zone change, however it would be. Okay. And there'll be another public hearing before the council, where everybody will speak and have an opportunity to, public will have an opportunity to speak. And then, assuming if the council grants it, it would go back to the planning board for what's called preliminary, but would really be the detail stage of the planning board, getting down to the nitty-gritty. And then there would be a public hearing at that stage as well. And then the final would be the planning board. Final would be probably before the planning board itself, but more of an administrative.
That's correct.
So, okay. So just so the public realizes that there are at least 3 full stages to go, each one with its own public process, 2 with the planning board and 1 with the town council in between.
And I want to thank, the planning board for having this with us. One of the reasons why the council wanted to do this was, again, so that everyone had the opportunity to hear the same thing at the same time. And so as, the common buzzword is in full disclosure, so we wanted to make sure that no one was thinking that either one of us were hearing different stories. So, and I thank the planning board for, allowing us to participate in this process.
Thank you. Did you have a question, Ken?
Yeah, one question. Was all the market analysis research done in-house?
Yes, I would say the answer to that is yes, that they're very sophisticated developers, millions of square feet of development done all over New England, primarily in Rhode Island, but they have very sophisticated tools at their disposal as to market research for this site.
And following up, what is your vision for the retail section of this? When does that come in and how does that develop? There's yellow blocks on the site plan for everybody's benefit. When do those come into the phasing of the project?
We would see that in an earlier phase of the amenity project, the vibrancy, getting that done somewhere in the earlier phases.
The end of phase 1 or phase 2?
Somewhere in that, yep. It might take a little longer than that. It might be, and of course, working with the planning staff and the planning board and the city council, a town council, it might be might be rephased than that. We're amenable. What we want to do is make sure that at all times we've got retail and office and hotel, right? So we don't want any phase to be, without, vibrancy, something, really happening. We're not proposing at nibbling away at the project and just doing, like a little bit of an end, since we're going to put a major investment in, so we want to be able to have a pretty good chunk of leasable space.
The uses are codependent, the way the plan is laid out.
When you submit your zone product to the town council, will you at that time, and if I may ask, what will it be? I understand that there's a comprehensive plan change that you're going to require as well, and will that happen along with the zone change?
Yeah, our intent is that when we come to the planning board for master plan approval, we will also come with the proposed comp plan amendment, and most likely the zoning amendment. Now, we'll be working with Mr. Ruggiero and Mr. Tights as to what's the form of the zoning amendment. The comp plan amendment is fairly straightforward, but the zoning amendment really is, I would like to discuss it at length with my colleagues regarding that. This is, can be done in many ways, but I think the MPD is the best way for the town, but that's my opinion. I want to make sure your council supports it as well as the town council's council support it.
Yeah, I think that's a key element of our master plan. Of course, we're going to have the finished or the proposed structure. That's the infrastructure of the development, is the master zoning, right? The rules that we have to live with for the rest of the way. And those need to be commented on by the planning board so that the town council is reviewing your comments on the rules of the game.
I would think the earlier the better, because normally those are turned over or directed to the planning board for our research, and then we recommend it to council on any changes to the code. So that normally takes some time and public hearings, so.
That'll be right at the beginning with the master plan. Those will be right at the beginning.
Now, with respect to the zoning amendment, how do you see this working? Are you proposing to actually draft a zoning amendment and then present it to us?
Yes.
Us, the planning board, and the town council for
That's
our
correct.
reaction?
Yep.
Would you consider working with us?
Yes, I prefer to do
Rather
that.
than giving us a fait accompli and
No,
saying,
I
take it or
agree.
leave it?
No, my intent, obviously, is to work with Mr. Ruggiero and Mr. Tights on those and get their input through the process. I would be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Can we follow up on Mr. Hardy's comment? Would you rather that they come to the planning board initially at the master plan without any drafted ordinance and just have
Yes.
have a discussion with
Yes,
the board?
absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
rather than draft something, just come
Yes,
in?
I think we'd like to be in on this from the ground floor.
Yeah, that's fine with me, whatever process you'd like. I mean, I think we clearly have to come to you for your review prior to the council acting on it. So that's fine with us. We don't have a problem with that process.
Yeah, I think everything can't be done here in this room, right? So what we would encourage the planning board is we will do it either way. So we will come here. It may be productive, it might be productive for us to have the three of them think it over and come up with a framework that you're not obligated to live with and they're not obligated to live with. And maybe you might want to do that as if you've met as a body and as a planning board met.
I think Mr. Hardy has a good idea here, actually, because this is a lot to absorb. You know, this is one informational meeting, we're having a general discussion about a concept here, but we also we haven't gotten in-depth input from the planning board regarding all this shit. You just got your initial reactions. So I think that approach actually makes some sense. We can almost put it on your agenda as part of a workshop discussion.
Yep.
On,
You could keep it as an informal too, if
right.
you'd like.
Well, I think I might
Talk
want.
through it.
You mean have another informal meeting before we go to
If
master
it-
plan?
well,
Well, we need
if
to
you
talk
do the
about process, how we do it.
I was going to say, if you do the master plan, you have to have all your
Yeah, I have to-
certifications ready.
I have to have all the
and
certifications,
This would
yeah.
kind of skip that.
I would skip that. Yeah, so we'll meet with Mr. Ruggiero and ask the process, but we'll take advantage of your suggestion.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Madeira, would it be beneficial to the board, I mean, to have a site walk also?
It's up to you, of course, if that'll help.
We could
yeah.
have it within this stage.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how the other members of the board feel.
Excellent. Sidewalks are always helpful.
I think that, you know, you see it on paper, you see it in the field.
Is that available yet? For the board to take a site walk? or-
Yes, sure. Yep, we can arrange that. Bring your boots. Tick spray.
Did you want to set that some other time or tonight?
If it's going to be majority, it has to be a posted meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's why I'm asking if
Yep.
they want to do that.
I'm willing. Before the deer season.
It's
that or you could do it Tuesday. You want to do a meeting Tuesday?
Yeah, why don't we do it?
All right.
We'll come up with some dates at our next
That's
meeting,
fine.
and then...
And just
we'll
to
get together.
contact, I think you have Mr. Coates' contact information.
Sure, Kate has.
And Kate will make the site available. And we'll obviously participate.
Yeah, we'd be interested. Well, some of us
Yeah,
maybe.
so we'll get together on dates and then...
Just give us the dates. and
Yeah,
then
you
work it
guys-
out.
Thank you.
I know how to contact you.
Do the board members have any other questions?
I just had one.
Yeah?
I was wondering if you're a little bit more flexible on the uses on some of the buildings. I mean, I'm not on the three-story mixed uses, but there seems to be a lot of retail in these. I was wondering if you had any ideas of, or would be flexible towards some, with 1,500, you said jobs? Okay. There's always a need for, like, daycare or some sort of school.
No, we have never incorporated a daycare in one of our developments, but we've looked at that at office development. And so we would certainly, we would want to be able to have the zoning parameters for that.
Yeah.
So we would want the right to do it.
Yeah.
And so that would have to be written into the ordinance.
That's a good point, actually.
If I could just jump, because you may run into an issue with a restaurant that serves liquor, and you couldn't have the daycare within so many feet, and so it could...
Yep.
Yeah, we've got, I think we got enough land to figure that one out.
There's
Mr.
space.
President.
Well, you don't know how much liquor...
Is it possible to set aside some public area for other areas of the town? Like before Kiwanis, an economic center,
We're willing to listen to it. I couldn't commit to that
Yeah, I
without
know.
knowing what you meant, but we'll listen to it.
some type of outpost thing there.
Like a spot for like the Chamber of Commerce or something like that, could do something like that.
Other opportunities in terms of, areas.
The more Tiverton, the better Tiverton does, the better this development does, so we're all for that.
Mr. Pelletier, you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a brief question. I know we've gotten the materials that you've presented us, but do you have, or are you at a stage where you could prepare preliminary renderings or elevations to give us an idea, or to give more specifically to give the planning board an idea of the scale and sort of scope of what this looks like from the ground versus, you know, aerials are always confusing, or they can be, but I don't know if you have some sort of boilerplate
Yeah, we
elevations.
can at master plan level, we will provide some renderings that will give you a sense of the scale of the buildings. As to the site, we don't see a problem with accommodating that. The architecture is something that we'd want community input on
Yeah, no,
architecture and
it
all
can be
that.
boxes,
But this is just to give you a sense of scale, so yes, we'd be fine to do that.
Mr. Chairman, just one other quick question. Since in your presentation, you positioned this as wanting to create a win-win for the community, I'm just curious, from a historical perspective, how has a development such as this, with this kind of retail footprint, potentially negatively impacted other economic zones in the community? Specifically driving other businesses out of business and creating vacuums in other areas of the town?
That's a very, very good question. And, we don't win by hurting our neighbors. That's not how we succeed. And so Main Street lacks an anchor. It lacks a vibrancy. And so this is no disrespect to any of the merchants that are on there that are sweating, right, to make a success. And so we're persuaded that we can keep people in Tiverton from leaving Tiverton, and that they will then visit Main Street more, particularly the northern section of Main Street that's been hit hard. And so, yes, have we analyzed the impact? Typically, okay, Garden City overnight lost Borders, right? No, it was a very successful Borders. They lost London's and Things, a very successful London's and Things, and they lost Circuit City, all overnight. All within a short range of each other. But because we were vibrant and next door, right, they've been able now, and they've just picked up Pottery Barn, which just opened, Anthropology, which just opened, Williams-Sonoma relocated and expanded, and so we became the anchor for them. And so we think we can do the same here for Main Street. And so in terms of office, I just don't think our office is comparable to what is existing in your stock. In terms of residential, as long as you're here, you're not going to be able to walk out on this property and go to the ocean. Maybe it's a big global warming.
I'm not concerned about the offices, I guess it's more, and we're not in a position to backfill a Pottery Barn or, a Linens and Things or what have you. I guess I'm more concerned about the mom and pop shops that could be impacted.
Yep,
That's all.
it's
It's
a
more a
great
comment,
question.
not
It's a great
necessarily.
Okay, Andy, do you have anything else? Okay, then I want to thank you all. What a great presentation. I will close the workshop portion of this meeting, and then you can either continue your meeting or...
How about a motion to adjourn, the council?
Yes. A motion to adjourn?
Second.
Have a motion and second. All those in favor? We're adjourned.